Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm your host, Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. You can find us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And please search Apple and Spotify on those platforms to search for us. That's ATL Prime Sports, again, on Apple, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Personal Twitter, at JJ Get You One for myself. RWY Jr. for Wayne, and Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, who was calling the Clayton State men's soccer game today as they fell 1-0 today. Wayne, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Not quite as well as Memphis is. For some reason, I guess because they, beat Navy. They are at the top of the conference, American Athletic Conference standings right now, and 3-0 is Tulane right under them. So that's kind of strange. We'll ride this wave as far as it goes.
Speaking of the green wave, right there, 3-0. I'm doing well myself. Braves clinched another postseason berth. Still got some work to do if they want to win the division versus the Mets, as they both exchanged losses on Wednesday afternoon. So they are still one game back of the New York Mets. We welcome Georgia State Panthers voice Dave Cohen and David Walker from the Rebel Walk joined the show today, plus our Pick Six. That is what's on tap. Without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome friend of the show and voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen. Dave, thanks for coming on this week. How are you doing, man?
I'm pretty good, personally. Could be better with regards to Georgia State's record football-wise after, what has turned out to be three tough and interesting ball games at South Carolina and then back-to-back home games with North Carolina and Charlotte. So right now, Georgia State's 0-3, and they're going to play a Thursday night nationally televised, heard locally on the radio, game against Coastal Carolina, and one of the top quarterbacks in Group of Five football and maybe across the country. So the Chanticleers are going to be at Center Park Stadium on Thursday night, and I tell you what, Georgia State could certainly use a win right now.
They definitely could. You mentioned 0-3, another back-and-forth game. Last week we talked, if Georgia State scores 40 points, we like our chances. Dave, what went wrong? Tell our listeners.
Well, there was some unfortunate plays made in the game. I mean, Charlotte scored early, which I think was an eye-opener. I think I told you guys last week, I was optimistic because Charlotte came into Atlanta in that game 0-3. With a loss to Florida Atlantic, with a loss to the College of William and Mary, and then, of course, a loss to Maryland. They were giving up a lot of points. They had given up 40 or more points in two games and gave up 56 to Maryland. Knowing our ability to score points, as evidenced by the 41 that we scored, and it should have been 42, our kicker missed a point after attempt. But 41 wasn't enough. You're right, JJ. If you score 41, you feel like you've got a pretty good chance to win that ball game. But, Charlotte scored early. Defensively, again, there were a lot of points scored, but, defensively they made a couple of big plays. One of them, a blindsided hit, which turned out to be a strip sack and return for a touchdown. And, down the stretch when Georgia State took that lead 41-36, I forget what that's, but it was 41-30 something. We left them in hindsight with a little bit too much time on the clock. I think it was 1:17 remaining. I even said to Darren Granger, our quarterback, earlier this week, I said on one of our practice reports that I do for one of our network stations, I said, your throw and catch to Jamari Thrash was almost too perfect because it left too much time. If that drive could have gone another play or two, maybe, because it was a 32, I think, yard touchdown pass.
32,
there was a penalty on that play of unsportsmanlike conduct, which I thought was a little weak of a call. Our receiver simply pointed at the DB. Now, I don't know whether any words were said, but nonetheless, they stormed down that field and scored a touchdown. and they hit the extra point. The touchdown tied it at 41. The PAT, with 17 seconds remaining, put them on top 42-41, and that's where that game ended. And I remember, talking with Harper LaBelle, who does color with me on the radio. It's like, this team does not in any way, shape, or form look like a team that's 0-3 coming into Atlanta. But I don't know. Atlanta was very good to them on Saturday evening of last week, and they got out of Atlanta with their first win, and they're now 1-3. And Georgia State opens Sun Belt Conference play Thursday night against one of the better teams in the Sun Belt Eastern Division. Look, there's not a bad team in the Sun Belt East. Right now, Georgia State's the only team in the Sun Belt that doesn't have a win. But, of course, none of them have played the schedule that we've played with regards to playing 2 Power 5s that I can think of. But Coastal Carolina comes in, like I said, with one of the better, if not the best, G5 quarterback in Grayson McCall. Their best receiver is a former Georgia State receiver who transferred into the portal. He's from South Carolina. He's from that area. He wanted to go back to his, to near where he lives. But he also wanted to be in an offense where the passing game speaks louder than the running game. At Georgia State, it's kind of been the other way around. Our running game has really been our bread and butter, more so than the passing game. So he's their overall number 1 receiver right now with, I think he's got 15 catches in 3 games, and he's got 1 touchdown, but he's averaging 17 point whatever yards per catch. So I'm sure that he's going to want to make his return to Center Park Stadium interesting. When we played Coastal last year in Conway, we got out of Conway with a 42-40 win in what turned out to be a great ball game. So and McCall didn't play in that game. He was hurt. So I'm sure he's anxious to play this game against Georgia State in Atlanta. Sam Pinckney's anxious to play this game in Atlanta. And I'll leave you with this on this comment. The series between Georgia State and Coastal Carolina totals 5 games. In all 5 games, the road team has won the game.
It's a very interesting point. You mentioned Grayson McCall. Not only is he a top quarterback at this level, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay have him as a top 5 quarterback going into the NFL draft. So this guy is really good. What does Georgia State have to do Thursday night to stop this guy and get the W, first one of the season?
Well, good quarterbacks don't hold on to the football very long. So he's gonna locate those receivers. And Chris Reynolds did that for Charlotte. I got to give him credit. Reynolds did that, and that's one of the reasons they were able to win that football game, because of their passing game. I think he had gone out of their first game against Florida Atlantic with a slight injury, didn't play against William and Mary, didn't play against Maryland, but he was healthy enough to come back against us. And we saw the best Chris Reynolds. I'm hoping that we don't see the best Grayson McCall because they come in at 3-0. They beat Buffalo last week, 38-26. They've also beaten Army, and they have beaten Gardner-Webb. And he's another one of these quarterbacks that will not hold on to the football, as I said. He will get rid of it quick enough. But if possible, it would be great if Jameel Muhammad, Shamar McCullum, John Trey Hunter can get some pressure, some penetration, and some pressure on the pocket, get him out of his comfort zone. That's really going to be the key. But, we had a big injury, season-ending injury to one of our team captains, inside linebacker Blake Carroll, an Achilles heel. And I talked to him yesterday morning, and he is going to have surgery this week and told me that he'll be back next year for his redshirt season. He's going to take a redshirt season this year, the medical redshirt. And he'll be back, which is great news. But I know he hates missing, the Sun Belt Conference opener and really missing any game. He and Jordan Venzial, as I've said, they're kind of our Batman and Robin at those 2 inside linebacker positions that really solidify the defense in the middle. So I think in this one, got to get pressure on Grayson McCall because, again, he's going to locate those receivers, and he's going to deliver the ball quickly. He's not going to hold on to it and risk getting sacked risk interceptions on a bad throw, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, I've got some interesting thoughts about this upcoming game. Uh, so far, Coastal Carolina has played all three of their games at home, so this is going to be their first away game, and they are kind of the bright spot of the state of South Carolina right now compared to the other two big teams. And it sure would be nice if Georgia State could beat them and hand them their first loss on national television right there in Atlanta, their first away game.
Well, I'm with you on that. Let's hope that happens. I'm really kind of surprised that I'm sure it's part of the Sun Belt Conference ESPN package, but I'm really kind of surprised that, this is the game that is of interest for this week. I mean, I take that back. Grayson McCall is one of the featured players, so I'm not surprised. It's just unfortunate that, we're going to come into this game on national television a little bit banged up and 0-3 on the season. I wish that we were playing on national television under a little bit better scenario. But as the radio guy, we don't worry about television.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a David and Goliath situation, and maybe that'll make for a good game.
Well, I don't know that it's quite David and Goliath. We still have a lot of weapons. Darren Granger, our quarterback, coming off a career-high 343 yards and 4 touchdowns in the loss to Charlotte. Again, our ground game on offense is averaging 231 yards a game, which is 17th in the country in FBS football. It's mental mistakes. A missed point after attempt. Ultimately, and I remember saying to Harper on the radio when he missed it, I'm like, I sure hope that this doesn't come back to haunt us late in this game. And it's one of those things, as I told him after the broadcast, that's one of those predictions that I absolutely did not want to come to fruition. But ultimately it did. So, the key for us too, as I mentioned, our ground game is, can we control the tempo with Tucker Gregg and with Jamias Williams and with Marcus Carroll and with Darren Granger, who's also one of the top running quarterbacks in the Sun Belt? Can he have a similar kind of night that he had against Charlotte, against Coastal Carolina? The game is a winnable game, but as Coach Elliott stressed, the mental mistakes have got to subside in order to give ourselves an opportunity.
You're listening to Dave Cohen right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Dave at GA State Voice on Twitter. Dave, let's shift over to college basketball. It's right around the corner, about less than 2 months away. New coach in Atlanta, playing Georgia Tech to tip off the season. Give our listeners a little basketball preview.
And we just opened the new 7,500 seat for basketball Georgia State University Convocation Center. Which is
great
for Georgia State. It's I don't want to say it's a deal breaker. I say that in a positive way. It's there are those of us that have been around Georgia State, for many years who never thought we would see a new facility. And I've been in it now 3 times. It's not a lot of bells and whistles per se, but a very, very, very nice building, and certainly a super upgrade to playing in what was our former recreation building that we renamed the Georgia State Sports Arena. Lost some key players, lost a little bit of the core from what Rob Lanier had left behind with Kane Williams and with Justin Roberts and with Corey Allen, exhausting their eligibility. But, there's still a number of returning players and some transfers that have come in, one from Vanderbilt up in Nashville that has come in. They signed a 6'10" high school kid from the Miami, Florida area. So they've reloaded. It's just every time you bring in a new coach, things change and game plans change and ways of doing things change. And so far, Jonas has been a home run hire. His twin brother, Jarvis, is still on the staff. Along with 2 other new faces. So I'm very, very optimistic for Georgia State basketball this year. The one thing that always concerns me is that it's now a 14-team league in the Sun Belt, and right now still a one NCAA bid conference. So by the time you get to the Sun Belt Conference tournament, there's very little, if any, wiggle room to have an off night. We learned the hard way 2 years ago when we got to the finals and had a bad second half and lost Appalachian State. Whereas this past season, we took care of business down in Pensacola. We got the Sun Belt automatic bid, and of course, we got sent to Portland to play Gonzaga, which was a great experience. But there's very little, if any, wiggle room now with 14 teams and only one NCAA automatic bid. And not likely right now for there to be an at-large for the Sun Belt.
Yeah. Well, Memphis was right up there in Portland with you all, that same bracket of the tournament and everything, and we ended up falling to Gonzaga as well.
I watched some of that game, and at the time, one of our former Georgia State players, the Hall of Famer Rodney Hamilton, was on Penny Hardaway's staff. So I stuck around after our shoot-around there at the arena there in Portland and watched them have their open practice shoot-around and got a chance to talk to Rodney for a little bit. He has since left Memphis and is now at Northwestern State.
Well, Dave, thanks for coming on as usual. We appreciate it. Before we let you go, as always, tell our listeners how to catch the game on the radio side, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, always appreciate it. Our 50,000-watt flagship in Atlanta, 88.5 WRAS. You can find streaming audio at TuneIn Radio. If you don't have that app, you can download it to your iPhone or iPad, and then when you access the TuneIn Radio app, it's just search WRAS. The GSU Athletics mobile app, and also online at lowcountryradio.com. If anybody's listening or watching this up in the Hall County area in Gainesville, Georgia, 97.5 WGTJ.
We'll be looking forward to your call Thursday evening as the Panthers play host to the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. Dave, as usual, thanks for coming on. Listeners, you can find Dave on Twitter at GA State Voice. We'll be looking forward to the call. Go Panthers.
Appreciate it. Fingers crossed that we play well against the beach chickens, as we refer to them.
Exactly.
And I'll hold my breath for you guys. Dave, as always, thanks for coming on. Dave Cohen.
I appreciate it.
Georgia State Panthers. Thanks, Dave. And as we say goodbye to one Dave, we welcome another David. David Walker, quarterback, author, contributor of the Rebel Walk. David Walker, welcome to ATL Prime Sports. It's good to have you back on. David, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, guys. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, let's get right into it. The Ole Miss Rebels are 3-0. One of the reasons why we had you on, you just destroyed the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets 42-0 in one of the most historical places in college football. It's leading to a lot of rumors around here in Atlanta, but the Rebels look good doing it. Tell our listeners why they look so good on that 42-0 win over Georgia Tech in Atlanta on Saturday afternoon.
Well, I think they're just slowly putting everything together. Whenever you talk to most Rebel fans right now, I think they're expending a lot of energy on one aspect, and that's who the starting QB will be. And they probably need to be taking in this entire squad because they just don't seem to see the team for the quarterback. And this team is the real deal. You've got two running backs who are two of the top four running backs in the SEC right now. You got a defense that's given up 13 points, only one touchdown in its first three games. Shut out Georgia Tech, shut out a Power 5 team on the road. And offensively, last year with Matt Corral, of course, they averaged about 493 yards per game total offense, and this year they're right at 496. So nothing's changed there. But, man, what a defense. I mean, the yards per rush is really, really low. The total yards per play against Georgia Tech was 3.3. And they brought in Ole Miss has brought in a lot of guys, on the transfer portal, and they put them all into spots. And there's some big things that could be happening there in Oxford. It's really an exciting time. Last year, of course, they had a record 10-win regular season, first time they'd ever done that. And, I think it's possible, the way they're playing right now, that, they could go 11 or 12, even 12 wins. It's certainly on the table. So everybody's fired up, and I'm really excited for them. And I think whoever gets the starting job, whether it's Jackson Dart or Luke Altmaier, they're both really good players. And Jackson's had probably about 3/4 of the snaps. It was a quarterback competition whenever they got started this year, and they were going to play about equally. But then in the second game, when Luke had his start, he got hurt, kind of injured his throwing shoulder, and that really hasn't allowed him to compete for the job. So we'll see what Lane still hadn't named a starter. So we'll see what he does this week with Tulsa coming in. And Wayne, you were right. Tulsa's looking good. I mean, they got the number 1 passer in the country. They got the number 3 receiver in the country. They're going to come in. They're 3-touchdown underdogs, but that doesn't matter. It didn't matter to Appalachian State at Kyle Field. So, we'll see what happens. But I know they'll be ready. And then we have Kentucky coming. So,
the Golden Hurricanes.
Pre-conference game.
Yeah, the Golden Hurricanes are going to have to face the red out. I understand that everybody's encouraged to wear red for that game, so that'll be an exciting thing to watch on TV as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. 3:00 on the SEC network.
Well, we'll be looking forward to it. David, let's talk about those running backs you mentioned. Zach Evans, big-time recruit, went to TCU, transferred in this year. You got Judkins, Bentley. You got all the running backs in the stable there. It's a little different than last year. You mentioned it. You're Lane Kiffin's mixing in more run, and you nailed it on the head there. That's been the most asked question in college football probably. What team? What's your starting quarterback going to be? And no one seems to want to say it. Even in Oxford, you had it in College Station all season. But let's talk about those running backs and tell us how Lane Kiffin's using them more this year than he has in years past.
Yes, right now, of course, they've had some pretty big leads, and that's allowed them to use the running game more because they're running some clock, even though they're scoring a bunch of points. But right now, they're sitting number 5 in the country in rushing yards per game at 271. And Air Force and Army are 1 and 3, and of course those are the triple option teams from the academy. And then you have the Minnesota Golden Gophers at number 2, and really ironically, Central Florida sits at number 4, right in front, by percentage points ahead of Ole Miss, and that's the team that's quarterbacked now by the former Ole Miss quarterback John Rice Plumlee. He's having a heck of a year himself, but Ole Miss is leading, of course, the SEC in rushing, and number 5, as I said, in the country. So I think the passing game puts a lot of pressure on our defense, and that 8-man drop that a lot of people have gone to is tailor-made for a really good running game. And they've just been attacking people, and I thought that they were better against Georgia Tech than Clemson was, actually. They looked more impressive, I thought, than Clemson did. So, he's just got the right guys in place at the right time, and they're just making all the right calls. And quarterback's doing a good job on the RPOs, on the running game and the passing game. And it's allowing Broker, one of the offensive linemen for the Rebels, was the SEC Offensive Line Player of the Week. So that's really important, too. I mean, those big guys up front are doing a heck of a job. And, as long as we keep seeing that, we may see less passing. I think Jackson Dart right now is 10th in the SEC in passing yards. Of course, he'd probably have about 200, 250 more yards had he played full time. But again, that hasn't been decided, and we'll see where we go from here. But the running game has really been impressive. The defense has been impressive. It's just an amazing time right now. And even nationally, I think Ole Miss is being overlooked. I was watching an ESPN show the other night, and they were talking about, well, who in the SEC West, can compete with Alabama? And they named Arkansas. They still named A&M, and that's just something I really can't understand. But they left Ole Miss off the table. So Ole Miss nationally, and I think sometimes just in the SEC, they're being overlooked, and I know Lane doesn't mind that because that's just less rat poison to worry about.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. These kids hear it. The Alabama locker room heard Stephen A. Smith say they're going to blow out Texas, and look what happens. You got to play the games on paper. You got to play the games physically before you play them on paper. So I wouldn't write off Ole Miss as being a contender in the SEC West just yet. Let's get outside of Oxford for a little bit. Let's talk about quarterbacks in general. And I'll put the question like this, Mr. David Walker, quarterback. Is Stetson Bennett the best quarterback in the country right now? If not, name me a better one.
Yeah, I've said all along, and you may recall earlier on one of our shows, I was talking about the quarterbacks, and of course, Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy last year and is one heck of a quarterback. But I was wondering again why everybody was overlooking Stetson Bennett because the guy's a player. And now he's come out. They've looked so impressive the first 3 games. They've looked as impressive, I guess, as Ole Miss has. And he's just been phenomenal. So, and he also has a good running game there when he needs it as well. So I really have to look at Stetson Bennett very hard as being probably the number one quarterback, not only in the SEC, but maybe in the country. And, of course, Bryce Young's right there behind him. We talked about Hooker at Tennessee being really good, and he's done a great job. And Daniels at LSU is doing a fine job. He came within an extra point of that tremendous comeback against Florida State in the All-State Sugar Bowl. That was just incredible. So this conference is really blessed with some really good quarterbacks who are playing really well to start out the season. I'm kind of a QBR guy, and I see 20 quarterbacks who are above 80 on their QBR, and that'll reduce down to about 11 or 12 by year's end. But with the start that Stetson Bennett has had, it's going to be hard to catch him. He's just doing an incredible job over there. Somebody may come out of the woodwork, but right now he's the defending champion quarterback, and I think he's got a really good offense around him. And the SEC West is tough, though. It's one of 2 divisions in the country that every team in it, all 7 teams, have winning records. And the other division in the country who has that is the Big Ten East. And if Todd were with us tonight, we'd be talking a little Michigan, I imagine, Michigan State. But that division over there, they're combined 20-1. They're 17. I mean, they have 16 that are 3-0, and Michigan State at 2-1. So you're looking at 2 really strong divisions right there, and they're going to beat each other up. Both sides. Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. You got Minnesota in there who leads the country in 3rd down conversions and leads the country in 3rd down stops. Now, I've never seen that before, but after 3 games, that's where they are. And if I can get off that for a second, I got to look at Kansas. Kansas is 3-2 right now. Kansas has the number 1 quarterback in the country in QBR. Kansas has gone on the road and beaten West Virginia and Houston. And they're averaging 52 points a game. And they have Duke coming in to their place this weekend, and they're 7-point favorites.
Right.
I mean, that's just an incredible job they're doing at Kansas. And I guess, Les Miles is probably wondering what the heck's happened since he left. But just you see those kind of stories, and it does your heart well to see somebody who's just been beaten down so long. It would be like Vanderbilt, coming out, making a huge statement early in the season, except not even close. I mean, Kansas is, for years been just at rock bottom of the FBS. And it's kind of cool to see. They were down 14-0 to Houston at Houston last weekend. Houston's got a good football team, and didn't face it at all. Came back and beat them by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So anyway, that'll be kind of cool. I just love to see those doormats sometimes rise up to meet the challenge, and they're doing it with style and doing it with class. So going around the country a little bit, just seeing things that I, have taken notice of. It's been a great season already, and we couldn't be happier with the Ole Miss Rebels where they are. If you look at the 3 undefeated teams in the SEC West, who are Arkansas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the only one of the 3 that ain't been scared. The other 2, I mean, you're talking about Alabama going to Texas, and you're talking about Missouri State coming in to Arkansas. I mean, those were some
former
scary
coach
moments.
Bobby Petrino too.
Yeah, and to Bobby Petrino. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that game wasn't on TV, and I don't have ESPN Plus, that Arkansas game, but I have a lot of kinfolk, up there in Razorback country, and everybody was on the edge of their seats watching the radio, because that's what most of them were doing, watching the radio if they weren't at the game. It was like old school days, It's like back in the 70s when, if you weren't at the game, that's what you had to do, is you had to watch the radio.
Yeah.
But anyway, they made a big comeback, had a great punt return, and ended up winning that game. But you got 3 3-0 teams in the SEC West, and Ole Miss has been as impressive as anybody.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about quarterbacks, and of course, me being a Memphis guy, I'm going to have to throw Seth Hennigan in there, and if he can stay out of the transfer portal, he should be here for a few more years in Memphis, which I hope he does stay here. And we've got a North Texas State coming up, and we'll see how they do playing them at home. But my friend and I went out to lunch today, and actually your name got brought up because he is from Bogalusa, Louisiana, and he knows the importance of football around that area. And even though I don't think they ever played Lake Charles, he's familiar with that school up there. And as we were eating, we began to talk about Texas A&M and the gunslinger of yourself down there from Lake Charles.
Yeah, we have bad memories of Bogalusa. Whenever I was a sophomore back in 1970, we went there for the state semifinal game, and 2-point game, end of the game, and we throw a long ball, and it's caught in the end zone for the winning touchdown. And they said our receiver was out of bounds when he caught it. And we ended up losing that game. And Bogalusa got to go to the finals. And, we get home, we watch the film, we see that he's clearly inbounds. And I think from the way Coach Suarez told it, that whole officiating crew got suspended for 5 years.
Wow.
That's my memory for Bogalusa. So you can tell your buddy that we certainly know Bogalusa and so no doubt about it.
All right. Well, he went to high school. I think he graduated in '79, and that may have been after those two schools stopped playing each other or something. But he was familiar with the high school up there in Lake Charles, but I don't think while he was going there, they ever played them.
Right. Yeah. And we're just right outside Lake Charles. And, of course, we play all the Lake Charles schools, the Lafayette schools, New Iberia, up and down I-10, going east. And it's just it's magnificent. I mean, there's nothing like a Friday night in Louisiana, particularly on that south coast there. And it's just unbelievable. It was a great time back then, and it's still a good time now. We still have pretty close to the same district and all that stuff. But Bogalusa is on the other side, are pretty close to, the Baton Rouge, New Orleans area. So
right.
We don't get to play those guys unless we advance in the playoffs. So, and them as well.
Yeah.
But really a great place to play football and grow up and all that kind of stuff is right there in Southwest Louisiana, and then of course all the way down the coastline. Really a neat place.
Yeah.
You're listening to David Walker right here on ATL Prime Sports. David is a contributor to the Rebel Walk. You can find David on Twitter at David Walker QB. You can find the Rebel Walk at the Rebel Walk. Well, David, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. That's about all the time we have for this evening. We got a little bit more show to get on with. But thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to talk to you in a couple of weeks when the Kentucky Wildcats play the Ole Miss Rebels. Hopefully it'll be a battle of 4-0 teams.
Absolutely, guys. We sure appreciate it on this end. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next time.
Talk to you soon. Again, David Walker, contributor, writer, author for the Rebel Walk. You can find his book on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. Wayne, that wraps up our interviews. Let's get into our pick six. Last week, TC took it down at 3-3. You and I came in the rear at 1-5. Overall, Wayne, you are in last place at 7-10-1. I am in second place at 8-9-1, and TC is taking the cake right now at 10-7-1. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the pick six. You ready, Wayne?
I am ready, and I'm probably going to do like I always do and be the fan picking instead of the statistician picking.
Let's get it. 3 college, 3 pros this week. We picked from Monday's spreads, so bear with us for the fun. Number 5, Clemson 3-0 at number 21, Wake Forest. Clemson's a 7-point favorite. The over-under in this one's 55.5. This was 12 o'clock Eastern time on ABC. Wayne, what say you?
Well, I think that the slipper has fallen off of Wake Forest. They are no longer the belle of the ball, and Clemson will cover in this game. I do, however, think it's going to be under 55.
Yeah, that's a real tough over-under there. It's a lot of points. I haven't seen enough from Clemson's offense to make me think they're going to score enough points, and Wake Forest scoring against Clemson's defense to get to that 55 and a hook. I'm with you. I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I think Clemson's covers as well. We're all picking Clemson there. TC picks Clemson to cover there as well. Again, I just think Brian Brise, that Clemson defense, I think Uiagalelei will get it going. We'll see what happens on the outside with their receivers if they can get separation. But I do think Clemson's defense may even get a pick six or a scoop and score here. And I think Clemson will cover. Our second game of the week, number 20, Florida. They're 2-1 at number 11, Tennessee, 3-0. Tennessee's an 11-point favorite. The over-under is extremely high at 62.5. 3:30 p.m. on CBS. Wayne, what say you?
Well, I'm going to have to take Tennessee to cover on this one strictly because my mother went to school at UT. Normally, I would pick Florida against somebody, but this time I'm going with Tennessee at home with a most excellent coach. I'm picking them to cover, but I really don't think they're going to go over 62.5. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm going Tennessee as well. I think Hendon Hooker's the real deal. I think Josh Heupel's got himself a pretty good team, and I think they're the only contenders in the SEC East besides my Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm going Tennessee to cover. Look, I think Anthony Richardson's a very good runner. I'm not sold on the Florida Gators passing offense yet, and then they do have some holes on that defensive line. Utah was able to run the football and move the ball against them. I see Tennessee getting a big win and another notch under the belt of Coach Josh Heupel. Tennessee covers. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Tennessee covers. That's what Todd's got as well. Arkansas, number 10, they're 3-0. At number 23, Texas A&M. The game is in College Station. Again, Texas A&M 2-1. A&M's 2.5-point favorites. The over-under's low 48, dead even on that one. 7:00 p.m. on ESPN. Wayne, what say you?
I'm going to have to take the Arkansas Razorbacks and the points on this. I really think the Mountain Pigs have got it going on this year. They've really showed me a lot, and like David was saying, the SEC West, they're going to be one of the contenders if they keep playing like this.
And this is the toughest one of the weekend to pick. Texas A&M got slaughtered by Arkansas last year in Jerry World. I think this is going to be a Texas A&M win. I think Jimbo Fisher gets his team back on track. It's 2.5 points. It's very tough for me to pick A&M simply because their offense has been struggling, but I'm going to go with them. A&M gets the job done at home. Kyle Fields, the difference maker. Let's move to the NFL.
TC,
TC picked A&M as well, so he's going with me.
Well, I also had to pick Arkansas because also like David was saying, I've got a lot of extended family who are up in that Fayetteville area watching the radio.
Watching the radio. Hey, we all used to do it. I love it. First game of the NFL slate. We are picking the Dirty Birds. We always will. Falcons 0-2. They travel West Coast, finish up that West Coast trip. They are at Seattle, who's 1-1. Seattle's 2-point favorites, over under, low, 42, 4:25 Eastern on Fox. Wayne, what say you?
I'm ridiculous, and I'm picking the Birds, the Dirty Birds, Falcons over the Seahawks because I cannot stand the Seahawks. I just never have liked them.
Well, Wayne, I'm honest with you. TC's picking the Seahawks to cover. Look, Atlanta's 2-0 against the spread this year. Why not pick them again? Give me the Falcons and the points for that reason. I'm right there with you, Wayne. Look, the Falcons have surprised me lately. Their defense playing well. Got 4 sacks week 1. That might be more of a New Orleans problem than it is in Atlanta being good at defense and actually getting to the quarterback. But I'm taking Atlanta. They showed me promising things in the fourth quarter last week coming back from
that was a huge comeback
deficit. So I like what I see from the Atlanta Falcons. If they can put a 4-quarter game together, I think they beat Geno Smith in the 12th man. I'm calling the Falcons to cover, but I think they win outright. Our second game of the weekend. Wayne, do you have any final comments on that?
No, not at all.
Yeah, and again, TC did take the Seahawks to cover. Our second game of the weekend for the NFL slates at 4:25 on Fox. It puts the Packers 1-1 at the Buccaneers. They're 2-0. Tampa Bay's 2.5-point favorites, over under, and this one's low. It's 41. Wayne, what say you?
Well, being an Atlanta fan, I cannot in any way pick the the Buccaneers to win this game. And I watched the Joe Rogan interview with Aaron Rodgers, and it kind of changed my attitude towards Aaron Rodgers. So I'm picking the Packers and the points on this one. I think the Packers will probably win right out, though.
Yeah, I like the Packers and the points as well, and I'll tell you why. Look, I think Aaron Rodgers has figured it out with his wide receivers. I think last week improved. Aaron Jones can still take over a game with him. You still have Lazard. You still have Sammy Watkins out there. They still have some primetime receivers. Still got Tanyan as a tight end. They still got a pretty good offensive line. And again, it's Aaron Rodgers. Anything can happen. You got a great defense. Eric Stokes, former Georgia players, playing great on the outside, really locking down his receivers. I like the Packers and the points as well. TC is going with the GOAT and Tom Brady, of course. And we have Monday Night Football, our final and third and final game of the Pick Six. Cowboys 1-1, Giants 2-0. I don't think I've ever said that on this show. They're 2.5-point favorites up there in the Meadowlands. Over-unders 39 and a hook. This is all low. We went from 42 to 41 to 39 and over-unders. We picked the best games of the weekend. Again, Cowboys, Giants, New York's 2.5-point favorites, 8:15 on ESPN. Wayne, what say you?
Well, they're playing up there in New York, New Jersey. And I have to pick the Cowboys and the points on this one because I think this is going to be one of the first times that the Giants have to face something. Even though we have a different quarterback for Dallas, I still think they're going to pull it through on this one.
I like the Cowboys and the points as well. So does TC. That puts us all three with the boys. I'll tell you why. Look, Cooper Rush came in and made that offense look better than it did with Dak Prescott. Again, they gave Zeke Elliott a lot of carries. Didn't get many yards. Got 50 on about 10 to 15 carries, somewhere in there. I think they're going to give more of that to Pollard, and more of that they're going to split it up. You're going to run on the ground. You're going to open up lanes. Hopefully Gallup can get healthy. You're going to open up lanes for CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. This elite offense will get going. I think Kellen Moore will call the plays to get Rush involved early with his receivers, simple screens. And if Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard get going, I like the Cowboys to get that W on the road. So Cowboys and the points. That completes our pick six. Let's go to our final thoughts of the evening. Wayne, what's your final thought for the show, my friend?
Well, along with Memphis having their final final non-conference game, because I think they maybe have one more. I look forward to that game. But also, you just mentioned him, Tony Pollard. That'd be another highlight to watch because he's a former Memphis player, and it's always exciting to watch him play.
It is always exciting to watch your favorite players play at the next level. My final comment is Georgia, Kent State, 12 o'clock p.m., ESPN Plus, 45-point favorite. We haven't talked much about Georgia, so I figured I'd just at least mention the point spread. They're playing the poor old Kent State Golden Flashes. Let's see what happens. Georgia should move to 4-0 and head into conference play ready to go. Guys, that wraps us up for TC, who was doing some Clayton State soccer today. They dropped the 1-0 in a close-fought battle for Wayne and Memphis. I'm JJ. Thanks for listening to ATL Prime Sports. If you like the content, give us a ring on the bell. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Again, thanks for listening. Get you one. We'll see you next week.